We made USAA insurance to help you save. Take advantage of discounts when you cover your home and your ride. Discover how we're helping members save at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Local news, national news, even feel-good news, delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
All right, coming up at 5:25, we're going to have all the headlines that you missed while you're at work today. So you don't want to tune away just yet. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Today's been a pretty busy news day. So while you were down on the factory floor making the things that you make or selling the things that you sell, or doing the things that you do, I'll have all the headlines that you missed today while you were at work. That'll be coming up at 5:25. In the meantime, we're going to talk about bullying. And I know that bullying doesn't sound like a hardcore topic. And I guess on the grand scale of, presidential politics and whatnot, maybe it's not. But, as we get ready to head back to school and as our local school districts have decided to kind of take cell phones out of the mix, as we've been reporting here on WDBO, that Orange County Schools has decided to really crack down on cell phones in schools. And now Osceola County Schools are looking at doing something similar. And I think more and more school districts are going to try to ban phones from kids because, frankly, they are a tool for cheating. They are a tool for recording inappropriate videos and pictures. And they are a tool for bullying. And I bring you a story out of New Jersey where a 12-year-old girl who was bullied relentlessly killed herself. After her death, her parents filed a lawsuit against the Rockaway Township School District in New Jersey, accusing the district officials and staff of failing to intervene after they pointed out the harassment that their daughter has been facing. The couple were awarded $9.1 million in compensation, the largest payout in state history for a bullying case. But you know what? $9.1 million is a lot of money, but I bet you anything they would give it all back and pay twice as much to have their daughter back. 12-year-old girl was bullied to death, to the point at which she saw no other way out. She took her own life June 14th, 2017, after being tormented by bullies on Snapchat. She got the cruel messages from her classmates at Copeland Middle School. Middle school is the worst. Some of the messages even included, "When are you going to kill yourself?" And I've been reading into the story for several days now, and it's heartbreaking after heartbreaking after heartbreaking, and I'm slightly perplexed as to how this girl was bullied. And I know that everybody is susceptible; all children are susceptible to bullying. But this little girl is a cheerleader; she was cute as can be. It blows my mind how cruel kids can be sometimes. But this girl was bullied to the point at which she felt she had no choice but to kill herself. And I'm sorry, 12 is too young. 12 is too young to lose a 12-year-old. Oh my gosh, my heart breaks over this. And so I want to open up the phone lines to you guys at 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic and the WDBO app as we head into the school year once again, and I regret that bullying seems to be a rite of passage, and I don't know that there's any way to really solve the problem, to rein it in, but I think getting rid of cell phones at schools, or at least the easy accessibility to cell phones at schools, is probably a good start. And I will share with you, there's really only two kinds of kids in school, right? You're either the bully or the bullied. And in school, I was, in no uncertain terms, bullied relentlessly in school. Though, of course, that was back in school at a time in which we didn't have cell phones. So if you're going to get bullied, you got bullied face to face. You didn't have... you didn't turn on your phone and find 1,000 messages there saying kill yourself. They would be chance encounters with the bully in the playground, or in my case, it was walking home from school. So I moved when I was 11 years old. I moved from Seattle, Washington, beautiful Seattle, Washington in the Pacific Northwest. I moved from Seattle to Port Arthur, Texas, which can only be described accurately as the crotch of the United States. Port Arthur, Texas is it's all oil refineries and blue collar. It smells bad. It always smells like petrochemical. I mean, it has nothing like the beauty of the Pacific Northwest. So it was a real culture shock for me as an 11-year-old kid to move from pristine, beautiful Seattle, Washington to the oil refinery, blue-collar town of Port Arthur, Texas. Now, I came to love Port Arthur and living there, but it was just a real shock for me. Well, middle school is going to be your worst environment for bullying in the first place. And I think we all know that. Anybody who's ever been to middle school, anybody who's got a middle schooler knows just how cruel middle schoolers can be. I don't know what happens between elementary school and high school, but man, those are some I don't, maybe they're just pissed off kids or whatever the case may be in middle school, but those are just angry kids that lash out or don't know how to cope with their emotions. But I was bullied. So when I moved to Port Arthur, I learned a couple things real fast. One, they say everything is bigger in Texas. I will tell you that is so true. And so when I got to Texas as a little 11-year-old kid, look, I've always been a skinny, scrawny kind of guy. I still am. To this day, I weigh a buck 60 soaking wet, and I'm 6'2", so I'm tall and slender. And I've always been tall, slender / gawky. And the Texas kids just all seem so much bigger to me. And the Texas culture was so much different than, I grew up on the West Coast until I was 11. And the West Coast culture is so different than the South Texas culture. And I remember vividly once my classmates in middle school found out that I was not from Texas, that I was from Washington State, they started calling me a name. Now, as soon as you hear what name they call me, you're going to think that is the dumbest name imaginable. But they started calling me Yankee. Now, you and I know that Yankees, come from the Northeast, not from the Pacific Northwest. But you can't convince middle school students in Texas, Southeast Texas, that Yankees don't come from Washington State. So anyhow, I was instantly ostracized because I wasn't a Texan. And I, as hard as I tried, I even signed up for 8th grade football. I mean, I don't even think we had football when I was a kid. It was a suburb of Seattle, Washington. But I remember getting, I tried. I joined the football team on the 8th grade. I hated it. I was bad at it. I quickly realized I can't fake being someone that I'm not. I'm just going to have to be my nerdy self. And so I was bullied about that. And I remember on a couple of instances while I was walking home from school, I was back in the day. Well, I was back in the great day when you could walk home from school and not have to worry about things. Though in my particular case, I did have to worry about things because the kid who bullied me also walked home from school, and he and I often would head off in the same direction because we kind of lived in the same way. And there was only one instance where he and I got into a fist fight. And to suggest it was a fist fight would be an over-exaggeration. He punched me, and I walked away. And that was it. I didn't hit him back. I don't know. I was so intimidated. I was such a little kid. I was so intimidated by all these big Texas kids. And then just, me, this little scrawny Yankee as it was. And so that was middle school. Then once I got to high school, I started to fit in a little bit better. But once I got to high school, I was diagnosed with cancer. When I was 15 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer. And high school kids bullied the hell out of me for having cancer, which I remember many a day going home frustrated. I don't think quite in tears. I don't think it ever brought me to tears. But I remember going home frustrated thinking, man, it's bad enough. It's bad enough that I'm getting chemotherapy, daily, and I'm having radiation therapy. It's bad enough that I'm throwing up all the time. It's bad enough that it's all I can do to pick my body up off of a couch and stand up. It's all that I could do to breathe on some days. But to be made fun of because of that, I was relentlessly referred to in high school as Cancer Boy. Cancer Boy. That's what they called me in school. Cancer Boy. And I can tell you, and Laurel, you and I talked about this a little bit before we went on the air today. And I said to you, and I believe this, but I'm over it. Like, I don't still harbor ill feelings about this. Being bullied as a kid, I know for some people it's something that you carry with you your whole life, and I do remember it. You know, your brain is wired to remember the extraordinary, but not the ordinary. You know, as an example, you don't remember, what you ate 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday for lunch. You don't remember that, but you remember 20 years ago when you were eating a salad and you suddenly found a frog in your salad. That's extraordinary. Your brain remembers things that are extraordinary. So I don't remember most of my junior high, middle school experience. I don't remember a whole lot of my high school interactions, but I certainly remember the ones that made me feel terrible. And Laurel, I mean, that's just how the brain works, right?
Yeah, definitely. And like you and I were talking about, I had a few instances myself. And, none of them were awful. I got called Four Eyes because of my glasses.
Which is real creative, real original.
That was a real, that kid. And now, of course, as an adult, you're like, man, that kid had problems himself, But my daughter's going through middle school. She's going into high school this year, and she's been bullied. And, she comes home, and she's like, I asked her the other day, and I was telling you this. I said, on the bus, was there a kid that bullied everybody, or was it the whole bus? And she's like, well, the whole bus is loud and annoying. And I'm like, well, yeah that's school buses. And she said, well, no, it's just this one kid and his friends, and they're really the ones that go out of the way to pick on people. She goes, I don't think that he has a good home life, though. And I'm like, well, that's very, very smart of you, But she has come home, and when she first got into middle school, she didn't want to eat lunch. And I've told this story before in the stream. She didn't want to eat lunch, and she wasn't eating lunch in the cafeteria. And we're like, why? And she goes, I don't like any of the food. And we said, okay, this school has multiple choices. And we'd look online, and I'm like, the stuff they were serving today is stuff it's like chicken nuggets. You eat chicken nuggets all the time. It's French fries. You eat French fries all the time. And it comes to find out that she was worried people were going to take photos of her eating and put them up on social media. Because that's a thing they do, is they take photos of each other and post them up on social media. Same thing happened on the bus. They were taking photos of one another. Like, she was just looking out the window, but it was an ugly picture because she wasn't posing for it. And so while I see why some people don't applaud the idea of taking cell phones away, I don't know. I feel like they're used to bully a lot.
Yeah. I do too. So to that end, I'm really glad that they're cracking down on cell phones. I'd love to hear from you guys at 844-580-WDBO. If you were bullied in school and how you dealt with that, or maybe your kids or grandkids have been bullied in school, and how you've addressed that, how you've dealt with that, how you cope with that. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app, and particularly, honestly, like if you found out that your kid was the bully, I mean, I would love to hear from the other side of that. And parents, I mean, are you even aware whether or not your kids are bullied or are the bullies? Because I firmly believe that there are only two kinds of kids in school. You either belong in one of those categories or the other category, right? If you're not bullying people, you're probably being bullied yourself. And regrettably, I mean, it just seems like a rite of passage. And I remember that I never went home and told my parents. I never went home and said, oh, they called me Cancer Boy, or they called me Yank. Actually, I take that back. I do remember telling my dad that they called me Yankee because my father is from Massachusetts. My father was, in fact, a Yankee from Massachusetts. It made sense. So I remember telling my dad, I was like, Dad, they're calling me a Yankee at school. And he's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense at all. And I guess as far as offensive nicknames go, Yankee certainly is not the worst. So I'm even though I remember being bullied in school, all things considered, it really wasn't that traumatic for me. But I would love to hear your take on this at 844-580-WDBO. Don't nobody go nowhere. Coming up next, here we'll have the headlines that you have missed while you're at work today. That'll be coming up next right here on The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
All right, we're going to get to some of your phone calls coming up here in just a second. First, though, here's what you missed while you were at work today. The Huffington Post reported today. This actually happened a month ago, but it's just now being reported as federal agents executed a search warrant on WWE boss Vince McMahon and served him with a federal grand jury subpoena. We're still looking for more details about that. Associated Press had the headline this afternoon: the gunman who stormed the Pittsburgh synagogue sentenced to death for killing 11 people in the nation's deadliest anti-Semitic attack. The DW News, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his wife Sophie Trudeau announced that they are getting a divorce after 18 years of marriage. Maybe she just found out about his blackface images. Also, The Hill reporting former President Trump scheduled to make his first court appearance Thursday afternoon after being indicted on federal charges related to the transfer of power after the 2020 election. ABC News had the report. Former Vice President Pence defends his actions on January 6th in the wake of the indictment against former President Trump, saying, this is Pence, sadly, the president was surrounded by a group of crackpot lawyers that kept telling him what he wanted to hear. Just an hour ago, Newsmax, there was a possible active shooter at the Senate office building in the U.S. Capitol. It turned out there was no active shooter, just reports of. Certainly scared the heck out of a lot of Senate staffers. CNN has the headline: U.S. stocks post a sharp sell-off following Fitch's downgrading of the U.S. debt as the Nasdaq notches its worst session in 5 months. And lastly, TMZ has the report that Leah Remini, the actress, is suing the Church of Scientology for stalking, harassment, and emotional distress. Those are the headlines you missed while you're at the office today. 844-580-WDBO. Let's go to Ted in Orlando, and we're talking about bullying as kids get ready to head back to school late next week. Hi, Ted. You're on the Joe Kelley Show. How are you?
Hey, Joe. I'm doing well. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I'm from Atlanta, but I live here in Central Florida now, and I went to visit my family. One day I was going to pick my nephew up from school, and when I went to pick him up from school, I think it was about ninth grade. He was getting pushed around in the parking lot, and when I pulled up, they obviously stopped and came to the car, and he said, these guys beat me up pretty much every day. And I said, was there one in particular? He's like, yeah, that guy right there. I said, okay, we're going to drive over there. You're going to get out of the car. You're going to stand there. You're going to call him over. When he comes over, as soon as he gets close enough, aim for his nose and throw as hard a punch as you can. So he does, breaks the kid's glasses, busts his nose, gave him a bloody lip. All of his buddies stayed out of it. The next day, he gets called into the principal's office, and I get called into the principal's office because I'm the one that that's my sister found out. I was the one that encouraged it.
How did that make you feel as a father getting called to the principal's office?
Well, I was an uncle, but I felt great. I told the principal, I said, do whatever you got to do, but if you suspend him, I'm taking him to the aquarium, the Coke Museum, the College Football Hall of Fame. He's going to get rewarded for standing up. Because you don't, and then I asked him, I said, what's he supposed to do? He goes, well, we have rules here. We have teachers, they're supposed to report all incidents to a teacher, and then there's a bench that they go sit on, and it's like the pity bench.
Wow.
And kids are supposed to come up and say something nice to you while you're sitting on the pity bench to try to help your feelings.
So the bench is the bench is for the victim, not the perpetrator?
Yes.
Oh, that seems terrible.
So you got to sit there and let everybody know that you're getting bullied, and they got to come up and say, hey, don't worry about it, buddy. It's going to be great. I'm like, the heck with that, man.
Yeah, that would only make matters worse, I would think.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, look, get your punch. You may get one. That may be all you get. He may beat the crap out of you after that. But you're going to get beat up anyway, so you might as well get your punch in. And after he punched the kid never laid a hand on him again, and they leave him alone.
That is so interesting.
It's been a year. Yeah, it's been a year. He's never been bullied. He's like, hey, it was the best advice I ever got. I'm like, yeah, you can't be a victim. You can't be a sheep anymore because the wolves will take advantage of you. And when you set up a program in a school, it says, we have a zero tolerance policy, so whoever throws the first punch is the one that's in trouble, and they're supposed to report it to a teacher and go sit on the pity bench so everybody can come by and pat them on the back and tell them that things are going to be okay.
Yeah, that's terrible. Ted, thank you so much, man. It's great hearing from you. So glad you're a part of the Joe Kelley Show here on WDBO. We'll get more of your phone calls and comments coming up straight ahead. Stay with us here on WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Hey, Joe, I grew up in your era of bullying. We're the same age. My dad always taught me, the bully comes across you, you punch him straight in the nose, and it usually fixes it. And I did that. My brother and I kept walking home from school, and this bully met us at the top of the hill. About day number 3, we both looked at each other and whooped his butt. Was a Grizzly Adams lunchbox and an Adams Family lunchbox. It ended the bullying immediately. That's what kids need to do today. They start getting bullied, bully back.
We are talking about bullying. This as schools getting ready to go back August 10th for most of our Central Florida school districts. And this also with a story out of New Jersey where a 12-year-old girl died by suicide. She was bullied, and the school is now banning cell phones. The parents are calling for the ban of cell phones. And the mom and dad of the girl, the 12-year-old who killed herself, they sued the school district and were awarded $9.1 million just last week. So I guess that's, but I'm certain they would be more than willing to give the $9 million back to get their daughter back that killed herself. The people who bullied her, they sent her text messages saying, when are you going to kill yourself? At least in our era of bullying, when we were kids, a lot of us, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have that constant 24-hour-a-day bullying. I know that there'd be a respite from bullying as soon as I wasn't in school. As soon as I walked away from the classroom, I knew that I wasn't going to be bullied anymore. 844-580-WDBO. Let's go to Jay joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show. Hi, Jay.
Hey.
Hey.
Kelly, I love your show.
Thank
Trust
you,
me,
man.
I love your show.
Thank you.
Well, I was listening to all the bully thing. I feel bad about the 12-year-old. And I was bullied when I was in middle school in New York. Now, my era didn't have phones. They had kids that will actually steal your sneakers because they stole mine. I had to walk barefoot at home.
Wow.
That changed when I went to high school because I had a friend of mine who lived next door. His father had a Shotokan karate school. So there, now I changed from being bullied to beating up bullies. If I was your friend in high school, they would have never bullied you. About cancer? No way.
That's so nice to hear, Jay. Thank you.
And I'm put it this way, it got pretty bad that they bullied a friend of mine's mother who worked in the high school I worked.
Wow.
And I got jumped by 12 guys.
And how did that work out?
Well, the police came the next day, tried to arrest me.
And?
Because apparently I broke one kid's nose, one kid's rib, and one kid's arm.
I don't know how to. I honestly don't know what the proper response is. Like, I want to say good for you, but then
I learned self-defense. I learned self-defense to help myself out.
Yeah.
It also gave me some discipline. These kids, these bullies got to stop. Now the cell phones, it got too out of hand.
Yeah.
So I think something has to happen where their email address or something, or they get blocked from using their phones, or something has to be responded for these people sending these messages through this thing, because that 12-year-old girl, she hadn't even lived a life yet.
I know. It absolutely breaks my heart. Jay, you're the best, man. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for checking in. I really appreciate that.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Paul Cross checks our drive. We do have some showers down south around Kissimmee into parts of Osceola County, some shower activity. Otherwise, just a couple of little sprinkles here and there. How's that drive, Paul Cross?
Yeah, we're going to start off right there, Joe, in Polk County, going into Osceola County, of course, through Champions Gate and past Disney. Lots of rain, and that it means brake lights. That will at least keep people on a slower pace than normal. Pardon me. Also, both sides of I-4, south of Sand Lake Road. This is I-4 eastbound, westbound, very heavy all the way into Celebration on both sides. We're seeing lots of brake lights on the Turnpike northbound heading into Lake County as well. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
844-580-WDBO. I'll do it slower.
844-580-9326.
Or you can use the open mic in the WDBO app if you want to see the behind the scenes. Check it out on the WDBO Facebook page. We've got live video there. You can see Paul Cross. You can see Laura Lee. You can see me, Joe Kelley. And check it out right now on the WDBO Facebook page. All right, let's get back to the phones. Brian is checking in from Deltona. You're on WDBO. Hi, Brian. Brian, you with me?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hey, is Joe?
Yep. How you doing?
Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Good. Great show, man.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed it. Listen to it every day on the way home.
Thanks, buddy.
I got a story about my son. He's actually riding his bicycle in the middle, out in the road on public, roads in our little neighborhood, and that little boy was like 3 years old, younger than him, was hitting him with a plastic bat. So he calls me, my son, says, "Dad, what do I do?" I said, he's hitting you. I said, "Get off your bike. You hold your fist up to him. Say, if you don't stop hitting me with the bat, I'm going to punch you. And get back on your bike and go on your way. You can ride your bike up and down the road. It's, free, free world." So he says, "Okay." So about 10 minutes later, he calls me back. He says, "Dad," he says, "I did what you told me." I said, "Get off your bike, go punch him." So my son got off his bike and went and punched the little boy. Well, the little boy went home, told his mom.
Sure.
And Volusia County was called.
Of course.
By that time, I was on my way home. I was at home, and the deputy was still there, and my neighbor down the street had went and got my son and my little girl and took them into her house and their house and called me and let me know that she had them. So I had to walk past the deputy, and he says, "Hey," he goes, "where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go get my son." He goes, "Your name of your son?" I said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, I need to talk to you." I said, "Okay." He says, "Your son, hit the little boy." I said, "Well," I told him the story. I said, "I told my son, I said, you're not going to get bullied, even if he's a little boy. If his parents cannot discipline him, then they need to, get him off the street, not play in the street."
Sure.
And not hit people. And so the police officer says, "Okay." He says, "You're free to go." He goes, "I'll go talk to them and tell them, that they need to discipline their child." And I was happy.
And is that? I mean, was that the end of the story, or did it expand from there?
Well, it kind of expanded there because it's a really long story, but they ended up having. Well, they tried to say I inappropriately touched their daughter. I never touched her. It was in front of people. It was a bad deal.
Yeah.
But there was witnesses there, and I had, and what was sad was, the next day a deputy was at my house, and I told that deputy. He told me, "Hey, that you reported that you inappropriately touched a child." And I said, I told him the story. He went and checked it out, of course, come back and said, "You're good." And that could have been my life because I lived right by his school. I could have been hit as a sex offender, and I would have had to move. Lost my house, everything.
That, Brian, is a crazy story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I truly don't know how to react. Paul, Laurel, I don't know what to say when someone says, "I told my kid to go punch them." I don't know what the proper response is because, again, part of me is like, good. I'm so glad to hear that. Go punch that kid. No, the best thing you can do with a bully is punch a bully.
Right.
But then I'm like, but violence begets violence,
Well, and then in my case, I have a petite almost 15-year-old daughter, right? Her bully is a boy, and he's much bigger than her. And so I don't want to be like, punch him because he decides to go after her, So what do you say? Though I part of me is like, yeah, you do deserve to get punched if you're a bully. In my daughter's case, that's not exactly the solution. So it's so tough.
Yeah, I can see that. 844-580-WDBO. Beverly is checking in from Claremont here on the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Hi, Beverly.
Hey.
Hi.
I just wanted to say about the phones in schools.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm 77 years old, and when I was in the 7th grade, which was 12 years old, of course, we didn't have cell phones to bully each other with, but there's nothing any meaner than a 12-year-old girl at some time.
Yeah.
And there was this one girl in our class that made up what she called slam books. And they were assigned to, one book was assigned to each girl, and they passed the books around, and you could write anything you wanted to about the girl. And usually it was all nasty.
You know, Beverly, my biggest takeaway of the story you're telling me is that you are 77 years old, and yet your memory from one incident from when you were 12 is still clear as day in your mind, isn't it?
And very hurtful. My heart still hurts over it.
I mean, I'm going to be thinking about you and this phone call even after I go home tonight, because, and that's what I wish bullies understood. I wish parents of bullies or bullies, I wish they understood the impact, the lifelong impact that they have on then children and eventually grown adults. And while I didn't, again, I don't think any of the bullying that I received, crossed the line, so to speak. I remember it vividly. I remember their names. I remember where it happened. I remember so much about those incidents that I otherwise wouldn't remember that time very well. Beverly, I'm so glad you called. Thank you so much for being a part of the Joe Kelley Show. We'll get more of your calls and comments coming up in a few minutes. And I'm thinking about telling a story in which I was bullied. I've never told this particular story before because it involves nudity and bullying, which is weird. So hang on. I'm going to think about it during the break here, and I might tell the story coming up on the other side. So stay with us.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, the three big things you need to know.
3. Some California politicians are asking Taylor Swift to delay her Los Angeles shows in solidarity with striking hotel workers. The pop star is set to perform 6 sold-out shows starting this week. 2. The South is still dealing with a brutal heat wave. Millions of people are under heat alerts as the heat index hits triple digits yet again. In New Orleans, the heat index reached 109 degrees Tuesday, while near Corpus Christi, Texas, that number reached 112. 1. The U.S.'s debt rating is being downgraded. Fitch has lowered it from the highest AAA rating to AA+. Several factors were cited, including a steady deterioration in standards of governance over the last 2 decades.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Hey, Joe. So I'm a Seminole County parent. I've watched videos from the classrooms with kids. Everybody's on their phone. They need to deposit the phones when they come into the class. They get it back when they're done. This is a place for learning, not being on your cell phones. It's unfortunate how addicted we are to cell phones. Glad I could call you right now on my cell phone, but...
Yeah. Drive safely, please. We're talking about bullying as schools getting ready to go back, and schools are cracking down on cell phones, through which a lot of kids are bullied or bully other kids digitally through phones, through Snapchat, through Signal, through all the other platforms that they're bullying one another. When I was in school, I'm going to tell the naked bullying story. You guys ready? Laurel, I don't think I've ever told Laurel, you've heard all my stories on the radio, so I don't know if I've ever told this story, so stop me if I've told this story on the radio.
This is the one about the locker room, right?
Yeah, so I've told this. Was it on the air that I told this story?
I don't think so.
So anyhow, I was in middle school again. So middle school is where all the bullying takes place. And I was in 8th grade football, which was terrible. And I was very, very bad at it. I mean, seriously, I weighed like 125 pounds and I was 6'2". It was terrible. But one day after practice, we were all, in the showers. And man, middle school showers are the most humiliating thing imaginable because all these naked prepubescent and pubescent boys naked in the showers. And I'm standing in the shower and I'm trying to get in and out of the shower as fast as possible. I don't want to be naked in front of teenagers more than anybody else wants to be naked in front of teenagers. And some kid, some Texas kid, and again, I'm pretty new to the state and stuff, and I just felt so intimidated, comes up and shoves me and says that I took his shower. And I thought, of course, my first thought, I was kind of a pacifist. I think I was raised that way. My mom like, well, you can have the damn shower. I don't care. So the guy takes a swing at me and hits me on the top of my shoulder. He hits me like with the, what is this called on the hand? The palm of the ball of the fist or whatever this is. I don't know what that's.
Side of your hand. Side of your
hand.
fist.
And then he reels his hand back and he walks away. And I thought, oh, I won that fight without even punching the guy. He shows up to class the next day with a cast on his arm to his elbow. He broke 2 knuckles when he hit me. I never had to throw a punch at the guy, and he broke 2 knuckles.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
Well, we have a crash on Colonial westbound at Thornton Avenue, and it looks like all of the westbound lanes of Colonial are closed at this very minute. We also have a crash on 192 eastbound at Avalon Road that got the right lane blocked off for you there. ProTech Air Conditioning and Plumbing Service for honesty, integrity, and 100% customer satisfaction. Call ProTech 407-291-1644 or visit ProTechAC.com. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelley when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
Paul Cross, I totally forgot to tell you this. Paul, do you remember, I don't know, yesterday or maybe 2 days ago? Do you remember yesterday or 2 days ago?
Not really, but okay.
Neither, right? But do you remember when we had that discussion on the air and one of the traffic sponsors was BOGO at Wendy's?
Yes. Did you do it?
Did you know that night I went home and I hit the Wendy's drive-thru and I got the
You said you were going to do that.
In fact, so I said, I'll take a Dave's single with cheese, hold the onions. And then she said, would you like another one for $1? And I'm like, that's what Paul said. Paul said I could get a second one for $1. So that's.
Did you say you heard it on WDBO? Because that'll give you bonus points.
I didn't. I should have.
Tell them Paul Cross sent you. They're going to go who?
You would think I would know better than I should say that. I heard it on the radio. I heard it on the radio. But I got and so radio advertising works, y'all.
I'm glad it worked out.
It works. It totally convinced me to get that Wendy's cheeseburger and get a second one for $1. And I was thinking, all right, I'm going to have 2 cheeseburgers then. But as fate would have it, my wife ate the second one for.
Well, I'm going to be doing an Indeed.com ad next, so maybe you can go out and look for work.
No, I don't want to. I currently have a job. I don't want to look for work right now. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw this video. This is really interesting. And by the way, this refers back to Paul Cross again. So, Paul, I don't know if you know this, but there was a teenager, 16-year-old kid, that was stopped driving through the I-4 express lanes. And this kid was driving 132 miles an hour. 132 miles an hour in the express lanes. In a car, not even like a motorcycle. In fact, I saw the car, and I couldn't quite make out exactly what the car is, but it looked like just a normal four-door sedan. It didn't look like a hot rod of any kind. But I've got the audio. I've got the body cam audio/video. If you want to see the video, just look for the story in the WDBO app. But I'm going to play the audio for you. It's a couple minutes long. But this deputy calls the kid's parents and says, come out here and pick up your kid. And it all happens in the express lanes right there on I-4.
132 miles an hour. How old are you? You're 16. Whose car is this? Call your father. I need him here now.
So he said, call your father here now, is what he just said.
Dad, this is Corporal Ricker at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. I need you to come out here and pick up your son. I'm on the express lanes, I-4 express lanes. I just clocked your son at 132 miles an hour. 132 miles an hour.
You know, the dad was like, he was going, how fast? Because for the deputy to repeat that.
Can you and another driver come get him? Thank you, sir. You understand if you were 18, you'd be going to jail for reckless driving. Okay, you're getting a speeding citation that requires a court appearance. You got to appear in court downtown Orlando. That's about it. I'm going to explain it to your dad. Okay, I called you guys out here for two main reasons. One, I want you to see it.
And when he says, I want you to see it, so he's at this point, he's talking to both the mom and the dad. Yeah. So the mom and the dad show up out there on the express lanes. You can hear the traffic whizzing by and the deputy says to the mom and dad, I wanted you to come out here because I wanted you to see it. And by it, he means his speed
radar gun.
His radar gun. And he still has 132 miles an hour on his gun, and he wanted the parents to see that.
132 miles an hour. I guess personally, why I call you and made you come out here is I had a kid about 8, 9, 10 years ago that I stopped in a brand new Mustang. And his parents were going through a divorce. They bought him this car and all this. He was like 16. We go to court. Both parents were there. Their lawyer was there. And I talked to him. I said, look, this car is too much for him. He's not going to handle. Oh, we're gonna take the car away from him and everything else. About 2 months later, I saw the attorney again. And he says, yeah, 3 weeks after that court date, he wrapped the car around a tree. Yeah. And now these parents don't have a kid. I did not charge him reckless criminal. If he was 18, he'd be going to jail and the car would be towed. So, just letting you know. The statutory fine is $1,104. That's a statutory fine. The judge can impose whatever he wants, plus court costs. The judge may take his license away for a year. I don't know. Be safe. Bye, Mom. Take care.
I got to tell you, I like the cut of that deputy's jib, if you will. I like the way he handled that and calling the parents and coming out. I don't know how common that is. I don't know if that's what they teach in the academy or not. But I like that he called the parents and had them come out there. I hope the parents were responsible enough that they dealt with this kid appropriately so that he doesn't go out there and do that again. Because not only could he kill himself, but worse, he could kill other people, innocent people who are obeying the laws. And by the way, in our chat group, Garrett says it was a Toyota Supra. And that being the case, if it was a Toyota Supra, that's a pretty fast car. Paul Cross.
I'll tell you what, the officer obviously has some experience behind him because he mentioned 10 years ago he pulled over somebody for doing this. So he's probably gone through this before and knows that a 16-year-old is not going to have too much of a future if he locks him up right now because of that stuff. So he did, he wanted to see the parents. He wanted to see who he was dealing with, I think, and that's kind of sets in motion of the court date and everything else because he's got to be there for that court date as well.
And I kind of hate to say this, Paul, but I feel like the kid being 16 years old, that kid is now legendary. I mean, he is going to be hoisted upon people's shoulders at school and treated as a hero for traveling at 132 miles an hour on the express
Do you
lanes.
think he drove his parents' car to school the next day or the next week?
Well,
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, probably not. Hopefully not.
But hopefully not. Yeah.
But I did
132.
I can't imagine. I don't think my car would go 132 miles an hour if it was falling off a cliff. I don't think it would go that fast.
Think of all the years of experience that you have driving. I wouldn't even feel comfortable in my 30s going 132 miles an hour in the express lanes. He doesn't have as much experience as a 30-year-old would do. So you really have to have some guts to do that kind of stuff to begin with, but you also have to have a little bit of stupidity, to do that kind of stuff too, because you're not realizing what the consequences are or could be. He was very fortunate to be pulled over and not wrapped around another pole or a tree like that other kid did.
Well, and then talking about those cars being too fast, our daughter, when she started getting a car, my husband was selling his Camaro, which was a V8, because he wanted to get the Z. And she wanted that car. And she was like, I'm going to save my money. I'm going to save my money. And everybody was like, do not give her that car. That is too much power for a young driver to have a V8 sports car. Do not give her that car. And thankfully, for multiple reasons, she didn't get it. But just hearing that just, confirms that we made the right decisions not to give a young driver a very fast sports car.
But when you were 16, you thought you knew it all. You thought
of course.
When you're 20, you think you know it all.
And you think you're invincible.
Correct. I'm young. That's just the way it is. But yeah, there's a reality check in there that sometimes you just need to get. You need to be slapped across the face with reality once in a while.
Well, and I don't know.
This one turned out fortunately.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but like in every intersection all across Central Florida, there are burnout donuts in the middle of every intersection everywhere. Have you guys noticed that?
Oh, yes.
Isn't that cool? Oh, that's so cool. Aren't they just the coolest?
Oh, I've never wanted to have sex with someone more in my life.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm so turned on right now by how that person is driving that car. But, I mean, every time I drive through an intersection, and I drive my wife nuts because every time I drive through, I'm like, there's another burnout. There's another burnout. There's another burnout. Donuts.
How many times have you been sitting in your car and watching a car do something like that or peel around a corner and you just go, cool, and you put your hand out the window with your thumb. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What how stupid these people are, but they're young. And if they're in their 40s and doing that, they've just never learned that is foolish and idiotic.
And I hate to say, and Paul, you're right. I hate to say it when I see someone driving like that. I think to myself, teenagers. Teenagers. And generally speaking, I think they are teenagers that are doing it. I don't think it's 40-year-olds that are out there doing it. Both my twins, Black and Decker, they're 17 years old, and only one of the two has a driver's license. It's either Black or Decker. I can't tell. I get them confused. But only one has their driver's license, and he has a car now. And when he went to pick out cars, I was afraid that he was going to be looking at sports cars and that kind of stuff. He got himself a very sensible, I think it's a Nissan Sentra 4-door sedan. It is the most sensible car. I mean, I'm like, well, all right, Dad, here's your Nissan Sentra. Because my first car was a 1966 candy apple red Ford pickup truck with a straight 6 motor. And it was not a hot rod by any stretch, though it looked like one. But the engine wasn't a hot rod. But it was a sweet paint job, and it was a sweet hot rod. And we were into hot rods when I was a teenager.
I had a 66 Volkswagen Beetle with original faded yellow painting. And it had a wooden steering wheel and wooden knobs. That was the model. That was my first. And believe me, I didn't get it anywhere near 80 miles an hour, never mind 132 miles an hour.
And every Volkswagen has the same smell on the inside.
Yes, they do. It's the upholstery.
That's right. I'll never forget the smell of the inside of a Beetle.
Paul says
I loved it.
A Nissan and Paul Paglia in our group says Nissan isn't a bad car. A Maxima was my first one, and it was tricked out because the owner put all these upgrades in it. So I got it when I was 16. And wouldn't you know, 8 months later, I crashed it and totaled it.
Oh, Laurel crashed a car? I'm stunned.
Well, it's a good thing Stephanie in our chat room didn't crash her car because she had a Ford Pinto, which is what my dad owned, too. Those things exploded when you hit them in the back.
844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. Let's go to Peter, who's checking in from Kissimmee. You're on the Joe Kelley Show. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Joe. Love your show.
Thank you, ma'am.
Joe, I was just kind of wanting to chime in about this speeding kid. When I was younger, I don't know if a lot of other older, baby boomers would turn around and would do this. But I remember my dad turning around and taking us to, yes, he saw and he knew about vehicle crashes and wrecks and burned vehicles, and he showed us kids those particular things. I don't know if you remember way back when there was an automotive show as far as part, I can't even remember the doggone name of it now.
Is it kind of like a scared straight type thing where you?
Oh, it was worse than that.
Yeah.
It was worse than that. Highway 51 or some stuff like that. And it was just one of those, but...
Well, I remember in driver's ed, Peter. In driver's ed, they would make you sit and watch all these crash videos in driver's ed in school, which they don't even seem to do that anymore. I don't think that they still do that. They show everybody these horror films.
No, but if your parents would turn around and take you out and witness and see and let them see, this is what happens.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. Peter, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your call. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. I did have somebody texted me about that kid, about the 16-year-old, saying the question was, what color was the kid? And, that's that is an interesting question. The kid was a white kid. I wonder if it would have gone differently if it had been a child of color, if it had been a black 16-year-old rather than a white 16-year-old. Could it have gone differently? I don't know. I don't know that deputy. But I sure liked how the deputy handled it in that particular scenario. My name is Joe Kelley, along with Laurel and Paul. You can join us at 844-580-WDBO or hit us up in the open mic in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. Join the conversation now by using the open mic in the WDBO app. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
Talking about this 16-year-old kid, 16 years old at a Toyota Supra. He was doing 132 miles an hour on the I-4 express lanes. And he got pulled over. The deputy was cool, called his mom and dad to come out to the express lanes to pick him up and to get the car back. The kid, because he's not 18, he wasn't arrested, but he's facing more than $1,000 fine for that. Michael is joining us in Orlando at 844-580-WDBO. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Great, I'm doing great. Long-time listener.
Thank you, man.
I have a little story. I grew up in a small little town where you had car dealerships in the center of the town, and us little kids used to walk around and look at them. But when my daughter turned 16, living in Lake Mary, I decided to take her up because she loved the Mustangs. And you can't walk on a car lot without a salesman joining you and trying to sell you a car. But I took her up there just to look at the new car and smell the new cars and stuff like that. And she enjoyed it. And this very, I want to say elderly, but I'm elderly now.
Isn't that funny how that works?
It is. My brother told me I can't call people old now because I'm 65. But this gentleman was very nice. And, of course, it was the year of the Mustang GT.
Oh.
So my daughter was looking at it, and I said, well, it's a beautiful car. And he goes, yeah, it's like 600-700 horsepower. And he goes, I got in real trouble last week. The Lake Mary is a very wealthy community, and a father brought his son down there, and he wanted to buy him a Mustang GT 500. And the gentleman basically told the father, he goes, I really don't want to sell you this car. And the father looked at him kind of weird, and he goes, why? He goes, well, do you love your son? He goes, yeah. He goes, then this is too much of a car for that young man. Of course, they lost the sale, and of course, the salesman got in trouble. But
man, I gotta tell you, Michael. I mean, when it comes to the reputation, of car dealers, of car salespeople, they're usually cutthroat, do anything for the sale. I like how that guy handled it. He obviously dealt with the repercussions of it, but he may well have saved someone's life.
Exactly. And now that my daughter's 34 years of age, she does have a convertible white Mustang that she's always loved the Mustang that her boyfriend/husband bought her just last year. So she's happy as a pig in a poke. But it was interesting that this gentleman refused to sell the car. And I'm sure the wealth in Lake Mary. And the father was just appalled at the notion that he would not sell him that car.
Yeah.
And he basically just said, if you love your son, you will not get him a car like this. and it's true, and it's sad that that the police officer, did what he did. But usually you'd see cops putting kids younger than 16s in handcuffs and taking them to jail. I'm surprised that he really just didn't put them in handcuffs and take them to jail and tow the car.
Well, and certainly if you're driving that fast, that makes you susceptible to being arrested. But for some reason, and the deputy made reference to it, that he wasn't 18, and I get the sense that because he was 18 years old, that arresting him was not an option, given the offense, given the speeding offense, no matter how fast he was going. We'll continue coming up in a moment at 844-580-WDBO. The rise of the robots. I told you this would happen as the migrant workers flee Florida. The robots are moving in. Hang on. You're going to love this. It's next.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Talk and discussion on the latest breaking national news.
Crude oil prices continue to fall.
Local news.
You're not going to have Disney have its own government in Central Florida.
And stories that matter to you. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let your voice be heard on the Joe Kelley Show.
All right, I'm going to take you back. You remember when I said, and we were talking about the new migrant law here in Florida, as Governor DeSantis and the state legislature is cracking down on illegal immigrants who are living and working in the state of Florida. And it requires all employers of 25 or more employees to use the E-Verify system, something that, frankly, is federal law, and they should have been doing anyway. But Florida is now leading the rest of the nation when it comes to cracking down on illegal immigrants and making sure that they can't work in the state. Well, a lot of people have complained, particularly farmers, saying, who's going to pick our fruit? Who's going to pick the fruit? This is not something that wise Joe Kelley came up with, but I had read this in an industrial engineering book some years ago, and it really stuck with me, and that is that low wages stifle innovation. And when we have migrant workers that work for a few bucks a day, then people will always take advantage of that. We will always take advantage of people who will work for low wages. But if suddenly the pool of people willing to work for low wages dries up, then what? Well, people say, the fruit's going to die on the vine. It's going to die, but there's no one there to pick the fruit. Well, no, someone will innovate. Someone will come up with an invention that picks fruits without people being involved in it, and that is precisely what is happening. We already told you about a machine that picks strawberries that they were even using out in Plant City. I mean, here in Florida, they're doing it already. They're using a machine that's about the size of a Zamboni. If you know the machine that grooms the ice, it's ice rinks. So it's about the size of a Zamboni. Well, now they've got this new machine. It's about the size. It's low to the ground, so it looks like an Indy car. It's about the size of an Indy car, not quite as wide as an Indy car. But then on top of it is 6 or 7 drones that are tethered to the Indy car, if you will. And these drones all have an arm that sticks out, and on the end of the arm is a suction cup. And these drones are, and the whole robotic system is trained to go up, look for the ripe fruit, attach that suction cup to the fruit, pick it, and then gently drop it back into the Indy car-looking thing. This is a better description than I could give.
Who needs flying cars when you've got flying robots that can pick fruit? Today, we're talking about an exciting technological revolution in the world of farming. Imagine this, robots with wings zooming around your local orchards, nimbly picking the best fruits off the trees. Sounds like science fiction, right? But it's happening right now. This is a reality with Tevel Aerobotics Technologies, an Israeli startup that is dramatically changing the fruit picking game. These flying robots aren't just your average drones. They are skilled pickers sizing up each fruit for ripeness and size before gently sucking them into their collection bins. It might sound like we're replacing our farm workers with robots, and to some extent that's true, but these drones do something humans cannot do. They work 3 shifts a day without breaking a sweat or complaining about the heat. This technological advancement signals a massive leap in the way we harvest fruit. These drones can work day and night, increasing productivity. What do these flying fruit pickers mean for us? Well, are we headed toward a world where robots do all the work, or will there always be a need for the human touch? It's hard to say, but one thing is for sure. The future of technology is up in the air, literally.
Oh, heaven's sake. If you want to see the video, it is really impressive. Of course, I'm a drone pilot. I'm a FAA licensed drone pilot, and I love flying my drones. So when I see drones being involved in stuff like that, I get pretty excited about it. But if you want to see these drones, and it's reminiscent of The Matrix. Remember in The Matrix, in Keanu Reeves, when he wakes up, if you will, in the pile of goo with all the wires sticking out of him. Remember that? And then you see all these little arms reaching out and plucking people and whatever. It's the same thing. I mean, it looks Matrix-esque. If you want to see the video, just look for this story in the WDBO app, and you're going to be able to see that video. But it is pretty cool stuff. I mean, they've got drones now that wash windows. So instead of having window washers, they've got drones that will fly up, your 50, 60-story building and will clean the windows on the outside. The future is here, man. The future is now. It is really, really cool what they're doing with drones. And on the subject of drones, and I know that's kind of a niche topic, and I don't want to get too nerdy on you guys on a niche topic like drones, but there are new drone rules coming out. In September, the Federal Aviation Administration is creating new drone rules that all drones over a certain weight, so almost all drones, will have to have what's called remote ID. So right now, as it is, if someone's flying a drone around a sporting event, if someone's flying there's a soccer game at Camping World Stadium tonight. If someone, and I saw this firsthand last time I was at Camping World Stadium, I was there for Monster Jam, and somebody flew a drone down into the bowl during Monster Jam. It was not part of the Monster Jam production. It was some ding-dong flying his drone into the bowl, Camping World Stadium, during Monster Jam, and it's very dangerous, and it is highly illegal to fly in that manner. Whether you're a licensed drone pilot or not a licensed drone pilot, it's ill-advised and illegal to fly a drone like that. But when that happened, there would be no way to identify whose drone that is, or from where are they flying it? Where is the controller? Where is the person who's flying the drone? Well, the FAA is requiring remote identification systems for what they call UAS, which is unmanned aircraft systems. So drones will have to have a transmitting signal on it that identifies the drone, so that any law enforcement agent, be it with the FAA or your local sheriff's department or your game wardens or whatever it is, they will have an app on their phones that uses augmented reality, kind of like the Flight 24 app right now. Because all commercial airliners, helicopters, our WDBO helicopter has a remote ID on it. Airliners have it. Private planes have it. They all have an ID signal, a signature on them. And using the Flight Aware Flight 24 app, I'm able to look up at any airliner, and I can tell you exactly where it took off from, exactly where it's going. I can tell you the exact altitude that it's flying and everything else just through this app. Well, the same thing is going to happen with drones. When that flies into the Camping World Stadium, you're going to know exactly whose drone that is, and it will tell you where the controller is. That is, the person who is flying it. So the police will be able to actually engage and arrest people who are flying their drones illegally or in an unsafe, dangerous manner. 844-580-WDBO. I'm Joe Kelley. We'll continue on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
Well, I got a crash 436 eastbound at Hathaway.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. In-depth segments on topics that matter to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
I love your show every night. You're doing great, bud.
So there's this social media influencer. Her name is Zana Samsonova. What a cool name, Zana Samsonova. Anyhow, she's dead. She promoted a diet of eating nothing but raw fruits and vegetables. She, 39 years old, died of starvation. You know, and I'm sure there are people who are like, yeah, she serves her right. How dare you do that? But, you know, you would think after a while she'd realize, you know what, this is not working out. I am slowly dying. And you'd think that she would eat better or eat something more substantial, but she didn't. Another story, a British woman has filed a noise complaint against her upstairs neighbors, saying that they chop tomatoes too loudly, and she can't take the noise anymore. Chopping. Could you imagine getting a noise complaint that you chop tomatoes too loud? I know people that can't stand sounds like that. They can't stand like the sound of someone chewing, crunching on food and stuff like that. Laurel, do you know anybody like that?
I was trying to point the right way in the stream and I couldn't figure it out. Yeah, I do. I work pretty closely with him.
Okay, yeah.
He has something called misophonia.
Yeah,
and
misophonia.
He banned us from eating apples and chips anywhere near him.
Yes.
His name is Joe Kelley.
It is true. I am that man. It is absolutely, absolutely true. Elsewhere, prehistoric worms that have been preserved in the frozen Siberian permafrost for 46,000 years have now been brought back to life by scientists. Have they not seen the movies? Do they not understand what happens when you give life to something once again that died off 46,000 years ago? Is there not a movie? I'm being serious. Is there not a movie about a worm that comes to life and it like bites people's arms off and stuff like that?
I don't know about a worm. I know about the dinosaurs.
It seems like a terrible idea.
It does.
To bring these things back to life. We have enough life forms as it is already. Let's not bring things back to life in the frozen permafrost of Siberia, of all places. By the way, the global warming does have one benefit. I did see that one of the glaciers that is going away up in the Alps. They're now finding climbers that have been missing for years. That have disappeared in the French and the Swiss Alps. And so, again, as the snow and the permafrost and the ice is melting, they have been able to recover climbers for real that went missing, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that kind of stuff. Heaven knows what else they're going to be able to find with that. A University of Houston astronomer wants to create a sun shield to cut down on global warming. He wants to put a giant tarp basically up in outer space and shield the Earth from the sun. Yeah, again, what could possibly go wrong? My name is Joe Kelley. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show. Thank you for being a part of the show tonight. Third hour of Sean Hannity is coming up next on WDBO. We'll see you tomorrow night.